And so they'll be able to train bigger, better, more advanced models faster with more data. And all of these things allow FSD to continue to improve, and then they can test more iterations.
So here is the update. We'll start off, we'll go page by page, and then we'll have kind of explanation for each of these line items. Tesla AI says, as October comes to a close, here's an update on the releases, what we completed, right? So they did roll out end-to-end on highway, as they've been saying, has been shipped to 50,000 customers with version 12.5.6.1. So that is, at least it's already out there, quite a number of customers. Cybertruck build that improves responsiveness. And then, of course, the massively successful We Robot event with 50 autonomous Teslas safely transporting over 2,000 passengers. So that's what they completed. Here's what's coming next. Just 4 pages full of the detail. So first of all, there's going to be a full rollout of end-to-end highway driving to all the hardware 4 users, all AI 4 users, targeted for early next week, including enhancements in stop smoothness, less annoying bad weather notifications, and other safety improvements. Then you got this, improved 12.5.x models. So they're going to continue improving the 12.5 for the hardware 3 city driving. Actually, Smart Summon released to Europe, China, and other regions of the world. Before we move on, why don't we get comments from Hans and Jeff on that?
To me, it's interesting. This is a lot, and this is fairly precise in terms of what they're calling out. And what I like to see is the progress is really good. It looks like Tesla has a really good ability to real time sort what the top issues are coming in from drivers as they report. Like, what have I been reporting on the 12.5.4 series? For me, is this, abrupt stopping at yellows and this hesitation at green lights. And sure enough, it's called out in, right as, one of the top issues. And of course, all these alerts when, this tuning that they have to do in terms of different weather conditions and how to respond. And so it looks like they're getting really good information. And, the amount of information they're getting from the fleet is pretty significant. I mean, roughly 50,000 vehicles are already on this 12.5.6. I think we're going to maybe hear about that in a bit. Just the amount of information, when people kind of talk about FSD trackers, maybe we'll touch on this in a bit. I have experienced, again, from leading quality organizations and of large companies, is when you look at very large data sets over, large populations. I'm accustomed to looking at millions of devices and looking at install bases and looking at the data. You can get a much better sense of how the product is performing and how it's trending real time. And then when you have these smaller discrete sets, those are also sets of information, but they have a different level of priority in terms of, and they also have a much wider variation in terms of how realistic it is relative to the entire population.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I would add there is just really to shoot the elephant in the room. There were some things that they had said that they planned to release in October that they really haven't accomplished yet. And so we're looking at the version 13 release, and they're not really hiding that. They're quote tweeting the update from September where they said that in October they plan to do unpark, park, and reverse in October. And then there's the V13, which they're planning to release. And so then this update, they get into a lot of, what's the status on the V13 updates and what's the status on the unpark, park, and reverse. So it's good to see that they're continuing to make progress. And while I was absolutely shocked that they were able to deliver everything in September that they said that they were going to deliver, I also knew that, with the We Robot event being in the middle of October, that the likelihood was probably high that was going to distort their ability to deliver the October milestones, just because, V13 is a huge update. So it was already just trying to ship V13 to customers was probably even harder to do than everything that they delivered in September. And when you layer that on top of also trying to facilitate this 1010 We Robot event, I knew that was going to be very difficult. But, after seeing their delivery in September, I was hopeful that maybe they could in fact pull it off. It looks like we're going to be, a few weeks behind that, but they're still making incredible progress. And then the detail with which they're getting into all of this stuff, to Jeff's point, shows us that they're deep in the weeds of this problem, and they have this whole basically punch list of things that they're working through. And hopefully we'll get this by Thanksgiving. But really, even if all of this was pushed out and didn't get delivered until December or January, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter that much. Like, these are all engineering problems that they have solutions for, and they're running them down to ground, and they will ship them to customers. And so, we may be talking about a few months here, one way or the other. But I honestly don't I think that we'll probably get most of this in November in some form or fashion. And it's just great to see this continued progress, and the ability, what they're doing here is such a, large change in their development process for FSD, moving to this native AI4 model. So it's, the AI4 hardware has not only a faster computer, but it has higher resolution cameras. That means they have more photon data that they're ingesting. And so they're able to run these AI4 cameras for the first time now in full native resolution. Up to this point, they've only been emulating hardware 3 cameras with these AI4 cameras. And so now they're able to say, hey, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the training wheels off of AI4, and we're going to open it up and really see what it can do. And so they're taking advantage of the compute power that AI4 has over hardware 3, and they're taking advantage of the camera capabilities of AI4 over hardware 3 as well. Now, I know a lot of people think, okay, that means that hardware 3 is not going to be capable of doing these V13 things. They haven't mentioned here specifically what the plan is to get version 13 on hardware 3 computers. I think that will come over time. We've got specific commentary from management saying that, we're going to start doing development work at the bleeding edge of getting FSD to function on AI4. But over time, we can then compress those models and backport them to the hardware 3 platform. And the fact of the matter is we have millions of hardware 3 vehicles on the road, and that asset makes a large investment into developing the software and making it compatible with hardware 3 worth the effort. And so it's very likely that they'll do that. And then if not, Elon said specifically that they can upgrade the computers on those hardware 3 cars to some. It won't be the same version of AI4 that's in current cars, because the physical form factor of those 2 computers is different, and that's not an easy retrofit. So they'll kind of have to make something new and custom for that, but totally reasonable and feasible for them to do. So anyways, that's some brief thoughts.
No, appreciate that very much, both of you guys. So just, let's go through the news, right? Version 13 is going to be, look at it. They already said that we've already integrated several of these improvements and are already seeing a 4 times increase in miles between necessary interventions compared to the version 12.5.4.
I'm assuming what they're talking about there is that the 12.5.6 releases are showing a 4x increase in miles over 12.5.4. That's what I'm. There's some room for interpretation there, but that's my guess as to what they're saying. I think it's version 13, because they're talking about version 13 here. This lays the foundation for the version 13 series, and we're targeting to ship version 13 to internal customers by the end of this week. So yes, they are delayed, but honestly, it's the end of this week, which is already Thursday, October 31st. We've got 3 more days. It's going to internal customers. Did they hit the month? A few days. Internal customers. Most of the remaining items are independently validated and will be integrated over November in a series of point releases. We're targeting a wide release of version 13.3. So that's the one with most of the above improvements for hardware 4
vehicles around Thanksgiving. So let's go through.
And that
the
mirrors
list.
what we saw with version 12, that it wasn't until 12.3 that we got the first wide release. And so, yeah, we're going to probably be in a phase of some slow progress in rollout for a while as they really make this leap.
But it's understandable, like you're saying, because it's a massive leap, right? So this is the major technology upgrades. This is the tech underneath. You were talking about this, the full resolution video inputs, native AI4 inputs, neural network architectures, 3 times the model size scaling, 3 times the model context length scaling, 4.2 times the data scaling, 5 times the training compute scaling. So this is huge. But all of these things, look at all these features, much improved reward predictions for collision avoidance, following traffic controls and navigation, efficient representation of maps and navigation inputs, audio inputs for better handling emergency vehicles. So they've confirmed that. We saw one user show that the car could actually see an emergency vehicle coming and it went to the shoulder. Redesigned controller for smoother, more accurate tracking, integrated unpark, reverse, and park. So there you go. It is coming in version 13. Support for destination options, including pulling over, parking in the spot, driveway, or garage. We had assumed that these 2 features are actually the same. Apparently, the vast majority of current disengagements by FSD beta users or FSD supervised users is at the end, right? Where do you want the car to go? Well, now, if you can actually tell it what to do at the destination, then you don't need to do that anymore. This is going to be feature complete. Improved camera cleaning and handling of camera occlusions. A lot of people were concerned about that. We've integrated several of these improvements already. 4 times increase in miles between necessary interventions compared to 12.5.4. And it's going to be coming out in November, wide release by the end of Thanksgiving for everybody.
It's coming off of Cortex too. I think that's a big, it's kind of a big thing now that they're going to be using. They're going to be using Cortex. I just want to just provide some commentary, and again, from being like part of this in terms of like getting tech out and mass volume. What they're doing here, this is all new stuff. Like this doesn't exist anywhere else in the industry, and we tend to like refer to that as something like new and unique or difficult. And there's just when you're doing something new and unique, your ability to schedule down to the day becomes more difficult. But you make the schedule, and that's what the Tesla AI team does. Like this is where our objectives are for October, and we make a schedule and we drive the teams to a schedule. But those schedules on things that are new and unique and never been done before are honestly very difficult to. The level of accuracy is just much lower. That's just reality. But I'm looking at this relative to where they were in the 12 series. I remember them predicting like a 12.5, I think in May, and we didn't end up getting that, I think, till July. And I think they're able to. I think they're starting to be able to converge now. And we're talking now basically a 30-day window. And who knows? We may have some regression, and we may have some loss of some of these features. Some of these features may not make it in. Like this is the announced plan, but maybe some of it may not make it in. But I think if you're dealing with basically a 30-day window, and again, V13 is going out to internal and maybe some of the early users here very soon, I think they're pretty darn close. And again, I think people have to separate like making a plan and announcing a plan and driving the team. And it's also announced to the public too as well. The kind of there's accountability there. Yep. And then what the team is actually going after. This isn't like, I don't want to pick on anyone, but this isn't like iOS 16 to 17. This isn't like even 17 to 18. And by the way, even 17 to 18, a lot of the features that, is supposed to be an AI device weren't available at launch. When you start entering into some of the stuff that this team is doing or it's never been done before, I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just trying to tell you like the variation on scheduling just widens a bit. And I think they're actually starting to converge. And I'm going to be excited to see the output of Cortex, and is this going to help them make greater progress that much faster and have a greater ability to predict some of these outcomes.
What do you think about this actual Smart Summit being released globally, Europe, China, and other regions? why would they do that if they haven't got approval for FSD supervised yet in Europe and China? It must be saying that they're very close, right?
I mean, I don't think that's necessary. I would agree that they're close, but I don't know that the one means the other, because they want to make this a more attractive feature for people regardless.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of easy to just roll it out because you've already got it rolled out. What is your thoughts on the size, scaling, and all these numbers here? 3 times, 4.2, 5 times. What does this all mean, Hans?
It means that they're basically throwing the entire kitchen sink at improving the FSD product. They're doing, there's lots of, each one of these things is a different way that you can make the performance of the FSD system better. You can make the size of the neural net that's making the decisions bigger. Well, they've done that. You can also feed it with more information every time it runs an inference pass. They've done that. They have added more data before they even trained the model, because it's a larger model to begin with. It can accommodate, a larger data set being used to train it. And they used way more compute to actually do the training. And, to Jeff's point, all this comes back to the fact that now they are able to utilize this much expanded version of Cortex. Supposedly today, we should have the 50,000, we were at 29,000 H100s online in Cortex just a couple weeks ago. We should be now up to 50,000 H100s in Cortex. That's going to be 85,000 H100s here shortly. And this much larger cluster allows them to train larger models faster than they trained V12. And so they'll be able to train bigger, better, more advanced models faster with more data. And all of these things allow FSD to continue to improve, and then they can test more iterations. Plus, they haven't given us specific updates on what the progress is of the separate AI4 cluster that they were making. So they're, doing a whole bunch of racks of AI4 computers to basically simulate the validation for the new FSD versions and to help find, where is the system failing more quickly. So I would anticipate that even that, and this really rolls back to Jeff's point about that 30-day window. One of the things that was hard and slow about the FSD version 12 rollouts, once they got past the compute constraint thing, was doing that validation work. And I think that their ability to run validation work at scale and in a much shorter time frame is at least much improved. It may still be the bottleneck, but it's at least much better